Mm-hmm.
Okay, my name is Michael Olusoya. I'm the founder of Greenway International Foundation. Greenway International Foundation is the environmental protection organization that is a youth-driven environmental protection organization. So what we are doing is we are to reduce our carbon emissions and also to reduce the plastic pollution. Today, we are looking at the future of energy transition and the research. And we have with us Sajith Wijesuriya, if I call the name correctly. And also the theme for the topic of today is the key areas of research in energy transition. So Mr. Sajith, I would like you to kindly introduce yourself, and also you can share with us what you have for us today. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So my name is Sajith Wijesuriya, and I'm originally from Sri Lanka and currently residing in Colorado, USA. And so, as I said, I'm originally from Sri Lanka. Therefore, I did my undergraduate studies in Sri Lanka in mechanical engineering. From there onwards, I did my PhD in Colorado, USA, at Colorado School of Mines, which is a research university. So my subject area of my PhD is mechanical engineering, focusing on energy engineering, specifically energy storage. And so after the graduation from my PhD earlier this year, I joined the National Renewable Energy Lab of United States for further research. So I'm working there currently. So in addition to my research work, I have done some advocacy work for the last decade or so. So I have my own organization called Science Policy Circle, which was established in 2016. And the Science Policy Circle is now the global focal point for the SDG 7 youth constituency. So the youth constituency that focuses on clean and affordable energy for all, a sustainable development goal of the United Nations. So in addition to that, the organization works on creating a science policy interface for not just the young people, but everyone to engage in the discussion of science policy interlinkage. So that was the main objective of the organization as well. So now that we are into our 4th year of operation, and we are now accredited to UNCCD process, and we are part of the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. So our sort of objective is to focus on different discussions around the SDG 7, mainly, that is the affordable and clean energy for all. So looking at different aspects as such about research and how the advocacy works, and technology transition and technology facilitation related to energy transition. So there are a lot of aspects that we are looking at as an organization while contributing to key events with related to a broader or a very brief overview of who I am. So I'm both a researcher and an advocate, I would say, for energy transition. So I'm happy to join this discussion today. Happy to respond to questions and also comments that you may have going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. For the sake of those who don't understand what the future of energy transition is, what can you tell us that the future of energy transition is according to the research that you have been doing and currently doing?
Yes. So, in the light of the Agenda 2030, as well as the technological needs of the current world, energy transition is now currently focused on how do we change the energy mixes of the country. So, traditionally, the energy mix of countries contain a lot of fossil fuels, and then coal or oil-based fossil fuel energy and biomass, of course, in developing world. And then there was a significant amount of large hydropower traditionally. But the modern energy transition looks at more novel renewable energy sources and how to increase the mix of the renewable energy sources in the energy mix in the country. So, for an example, solar, wind, ocean currents, and geothermal and biofuels are some of the frontline renewable energy sources that the currently the world is trying to increase the uh, these energy sources in the energy mix of the countries. So there is a lot of research that is happening in terms of increasing the efficiency of solar and increasing the size of wind power per energy generator, and how to do more effective and efficient wind blades for wind power, and establishing new geothermal in suitable places around the world, and improving the biofuels, reducing their emissions, reducing the carbon footprint, increasing the efficiency of biofuels. So, and in addition to that, there are other very new research areas, like we are pursuing how the ocean currents can be used to generate energy, and how different plant types or algae, like the resources from the both earth and ocean, can be used as renewable sources of power. So this research is the most frontline work that is going on to help increase the ratio of renewable energy in energy mix. So that is the broader picture of everything.
So, looking at the broader picture, how can we narrow it down to the key areas of research in the energy important areas we should be looking at in terms of transiting from where we are now into the future of the energy transition?
Okay, good question. So in my earlier answer, I said a lot of things about energy technology. So what are the new technologies? So energy technology is one of the areas. And the second area is energy efficiency. So how efficient can a system be so we can incorporate more renewable energy sources into that system. Say it's a building or a vehicle, how energy efficient the system is. That is the number two. And number three is how new ways of using renewable energy and electricity. So that comes to electrical vehicles and a hybrid energy system powered housing. So, and then number four is the storage, energy storage. So you hear about a lot of stories about energy storage, like from Tesla, you might have heard about very large batteries that are being done. And in terms of battery research, there is a lot of new materials they are looking at to improve the resilient batteries. And then there's thermal energy storage, like how you can use different materials to store energy with heat. So storage is number four. And number five would be transportation. and logistics regarding the energy. So how the transport sector is adapting to new energy technologies and renewables. So I think those are the sort of several aspects that are in the front line of energy transition, if you to focus on several areas.
Okay, so looking at the areas of the type of energy transitions and the type of energy in terms of the storage and moving from where we are into the new energy transition, we are looking at the solar power, the wind power, the geothermal, the hydropower, and the bioenergy. And we are not going to leave out other technologies, but currently we see that this energy transition is focusing mostly on the other areas because currently we know that there's a lot of solar projects, power plants going on. So what impact would this be to the people that are going to be taking advantage of this transition into the new energy world?
Yes, so you said about solar and other sources. So one thing that would be useful in this transition is that when you have the energy systems like solar and distributed energy sources in the renewables, the community will get more control over the energy system. So it's not like if you take the main grid, if you had a one grid for one country and you just extend that grid to the communities, there's not much control for the communities. But when you have standalone energy systems with renewables like solar, wind, and other hybrid sources, what happens is the energy system is more focused on the community. So you can use these systems to reach communities that are difficult to reach and far away from the population density. So it allows to reach more marginalized communities. So these new technologies can be used in such places. So that is an advantage. And of course, there is the fact that these energy sources have very low emissions at the location of generation. So the thing is then the effect on the community, the adverse effects from emissions will not be there. So it's good for the community. And so the only concern that we have at the moment is that renewable energy plants can take a lot of area, right? It can take a lot of land area when you establish it in near to the community. So the concern is how to recycle these materials and how to sort of upgrade the systems. So these are the challenges that we are looking at the moment, how to make these materials more friendly, environmentally friendly, so it doesn't affect the environment near the community. And if these materials can be recyclable, so they can be removed and quickly the system can be renewed. So these are the advantages that the renewable energy systems have. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
please.
I'm getting a question, and the question says that how can the new technologies be integrated into the existing power network and market structures?
Yeah, that is a good question. So one thing, as I said, is that these systems can be standalone, so you don't have to feed the system into the main grid. So it's easy to establish it as a standalone system. So you don't have that integration to the main power grid. But if you need to connect the new renewable energy system to the main power grid, there are solutions for that as well. So the energy that you generate can be fed into the main grid. By that, you can have an income as well. So if your community is generating more energy than needed, you can sell that to the main grid. and get some income to the community. So that is something that is been, I think, developed in most of the developed countries at the moment. But if the technology becomes cheaper, countries, so the communities can benefit from the renewable energy that they are generating. And so you said about the market value as well. So that is something that can be sort of used to generate some income. So then there is more benefit for the community if you can sell the additional energy to the main grid. And at the same time, if you don't have enough generation in the at the location, you can get energy from the main grid when it is needed. So this type of technological integration should be there when you are thinking about renewable energy in communities. But the most important thing is that the cost of the systems should go down. So if the cost is lower, well, it's very easy to set these renewable systems in developing countries. That is our main concern, right? How these technologies can be easily adapted to developing and least developed countries, and seeds as well, to establish the system very quickly and give the energy to the community as soon as possible. So this is something we have to look at and being looked at. So those are some of the integration between the energy generation and the market that you can have. So if the energy system is cheap, the initial energy cost will be less to the community. So it's not going to be very expensive electricity to the community, because if the electricity is expensive, it's difficult for the community to pay for the electricity that they use. So we have to think about that as well. What is going to be the cost for the community? So yeah, those are some of the things, like you can sell the energy to main grid and reduce your cost. And if the system can be cheaper, then the energy cost again will be reduced. So these are sort of the market and technology balances that we
So,
are looking at.
what are the factors currently affecting the transition into the renewable energy, and in terms of costs and in terms of acceptance due to the integration? Because this seems like a new sort of technology that is looking at its way of penetrating into the market, and how is the people accepting this, and what is the rate at which the transition is currently moving right now?
Yes. So the main challenge of the transition in terms of the sort of implementation is that the fossil fuels. So traditionally, the fossil fuels are supported by the subsidies. So the cost is very low for fossil fuels. That has been a very big disadvantage to the renewable energy. So the governments are more comfortable with paying less for fossil fuel and have very large generators of fossil fuel based like coal or oil. So we have to change that mindset and convert those subsidies for fossil fuel into supporting renewable energy systems. So the renewable energy systems will be cheaper to implement, and there's more support there. And that's going to be a big change. So that is what is the biggest challenge for developing countries, is that is why the transition is slow. That because the governments and the decision makers are more comfortable with the fossil fuel solutions. So this policy and decision making attitude will have to change in the developing countries. So once we have that, the developing countries would move faster into the renewable energy. Because if you take the developed countries, the transition is now much more faster, because they are putting more capital and the money into the renewables, and they are trying to reduce these subsidies to the fossil fuels and put that money into the investments of renewable energy. So these models are good to look at, and understand what should be done in order for developing countries and least developed countries to also move into the renewable energy sources, and sort of significantly large generating power stations of renewable energy, not just very small unplanned generators, but very well planned renewable energy stations with say 50 megawatt or 100 megawatt size. So that is the sort of thinking that has to change in our developing world to quickly sort of transition into more renewables in the energy mix.
I'm getting a question now from the outside. The question says that what is the best form of renewable energy?
Yes, that is a good question as well. So I think most of the well-known renewable energy sources are now hydro, solar, and wind. So if you take the traditionally, I think still hydro is the best because of the high capacity. Hydro is better in that terms. But I think one of the most up and coming technologies are wind energy, and large scale wind energy generators. So say like 10 megawatt or 15 megawatt wind towers or turbines. So these are very important because unlike solar energy, wind energy can last for more time, because solar energy is only during the time period during daytime. So there is a sort of a limitation to solar energy. So that is why wind is important. Wind can last for more long during a given day. So development of more high generation capacity wind is something that the industry is looking at now. And another thing is geothermal, where the geothermal sources are available. Geothermal is also a very high capacity up and coming technology. So apart from hydro, these are the sort of key things that you have to look at the moment.
Okay, we understand that renewable energy is a very good technology that we need to, transcend into. And when we're doing that, so what are the disadvantages of using renewable energies over traditional fuel sources? Because we know there's advantages, which is good. What are the disadvantages, the downsides?
Yes. So as I said earlier as well, one of the disadvantages is the land area that is needed. So even solar or wind at the moment needs a lot of land area. So that's why it is important that we develop the technology for most effective and most efficient generators. So increased efficiency in solar cells and large wind turbines can do that. And another disadvantage is at the moment very widely discussed in the field is the materials used. So renewable energy generators like solar cells use rare materials, rare metals. And so the people are asking the question, how are we going to recycle these materials? Solar panels, wind turbines, wind blades, and how are we going to recycle these materials, and also what are the improvements that can be made for the future. So this is something that we have to look at. So that is one of the challenges of renewables at the moment. So finding most recyclable, reusable materials. And another challenge has been the technology transition and the technology facilitation. So as I said, the fossil fuels seems very easy in terms of the technology transfer. So the power plant can be easily established because of the technology is also already there. But we have to do the same for the renewables. So make the renewable energy power plants easy to establish. More capital is available, more funding is available, more subsidies are available for the power plants in renewable energy. So then these challenges can be overcome. So
And what are the process of technology transition? Uh,
so technology transition needs sort of most upgraded technology, or if you take solar panels or wind turbines, geothermal generators, the very technology related to that uh, should be made available for the developing countries or the least developed countries for the same cost or reduced cost. So there should be more support in terms of the monetary support, financial support, as well as the technology expertise. So I think the National Renewable Energy Lab in US does that work. So they support technology transition. So they support the governments to understand the technology, to understand the areas they should establish solar, to understand the areas they should establish wind or geothermal. So where where are the best places, which type of generator should be there, and how the government should plan the economics, how they should take loans from other countries, how to plan the time period, say 20 years, 30 years, and the make sure these countries get the most updated material in terms of, say, solar panels. So because if you give the developing countries and least developed countries all technology, what happens is there will be more electronic waste in those countries, and it's really difficult for these countries to handle that waste. So you have to transfer most updated technology, so the developing countries or least developed countries don't end up with sort of old technology that would expire in like 10 years. So that is an important aspect. So we need these power plants to last for maybe 30, 40 years. So that is, those elements are really important. So that support is really important for our countries.
I'm getting a question here saying that are government subsidies distorting the market of renewable energy, or is supporting it?
At the moment, it's not supporting it. For most of the developing countries, uh, sort of suffering because of that. They can't transition into the renewables because the governments are holding back on the fossil fuel sources. They are more supportive towards the fossil fuel power plants. So that is, at the moment, is a very sort of restrictive aspect for developing and least developed countries. That is what
And
I think.
any reason why the government is moving backwards when they are supposed to be moving forward?
I think the justification of the governments is that they have better offers for the fossil fuel based plants. So if you take the offers they get from these different countries, they get offers. So we can establish this power plant for this cost for this time period. So the governments are, so more attractive offers are made on fossil fuel power plants. So what needs to happen is that you have to make renewable energy power plants. The offers are more attractive for the developing and least developed countries, so the governments can adopt those. So that is not happening at the moment. So that is the biggest challenge. So that is why the governments are easily sort of going towards fossil fuel plants instead of renewable energy plants.
I got a new question coming in. This question says that can wind and solar compete with coal and natural gas on price at scale?
I think yes. At the moment, if you look carefully at the very recent research, the unit cost of generation for solar is below coal and oil or natural gas. So all these sources. So that is the latest numbers. So what is happening, I think, is this cost advantage is not transferred to the countries that are most in need. So when this cost advantage is transferred into those countries, they can benefit from that. So that is what is needed to happen. But from a technological point of view, I can say definitely the unit cost is lower for solar and wind. So they can definitely compete. So they are very, I mean, when I say lower, they are very close to each other. So they are neck and neck, you can say. So definitely that is proven by research. And I think there was a publication, an article from International Renewable Energy Agency about 2 weeks ago, comparing the costs. So you can look it up in the internet. They say the exact values of so these prices. So they are definitely competitive. So what needs to happen is that advantage should be transferred for the countries that are in need. So what we should do as young people is to force and sort of campaign for those transition to take place. And another thing is, if we are in positions of sort of in technology or engineering or decision making, we have to sort of push more towards taking decisions towards renewable energy and making it more available for the countries in need.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Sajith. We really appreciate you and your time for being up here and also for educating us about the key importance of moving into the future of renewable energy and the research you have done and based on your expertise. And we really appreciate your time. And it's a wonderful time with you today. We would like to ask you if you have a message that you would like to send as we round up today on our discussion.
Yes, so I think my final message would be that the technology is available at the moment and the technology is updated. So every day there's improvement in the renewable energy research. So you have to keep that in mind, and always, as young people, have the data in your mind, read the actual information, and understand the advantage of the renewables. And then whenever you communicate with the decision makers, you have to convey that message that you understand the benefit of the renewables, and you have to push the decision makers to make smarter decisions to implement more renewables in the energy mix. That is my sort of final message.
Thank you very much. We are so grateful, and it's wonderful to have you today. So we are going to round up. Thank you very much. Thank you for the message, and we believe our viewers are already aware of what to do and how to save energy and how to reduce carbon emissions and how the transition into the future of energy it is, and why we should move from polluting our environment into a sustainable, renewable future. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Thank you. So see you next time.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.